went on with my life and have been relatively unaffected by this. However, it wasn't until February of 2018 at Scottish Power I was invited to a presentation that was being run by Stonewall, who Scottish Power had recently connected with. And it was during this presentation that I was reminded of some facts. Now, I'm sharing the facts that I was given at that presentation for point of reference for me, but also because, unfortunately, not all the data is refreshed so frequently. So apologies, these are a couple of years old, but the data that was provided was that only 25% of Scottish LGBT plus employees feel comfortable to disclose their sexual orientation to their colleagues. 60% of LGBT graduates go back in the closet when they join the workplace, and 1 in 8 trans people have been physically attacked by a customer or colleague in the past year because of being trans. And just to update those slightly, I have some 2020 statistics. It was a bi-focused piece of work, but again, you can read those facts for yourself, and I think in the workplace, these are still quite disappointing facts. And it was at this point that I realised something that probably I had been guilty of putting to one side for quite a while. And the thing that I had been putting aside wasn't my sexuality, but actually my privilege. And the reason I say that is because I became very aware that just because I was comfortable in the workplace and just because I had disclosed to my colleagues and that I was gay and hadn't feared any retribution, I really wasn't in the majority. I wasn't in the majority of people. So for every one of me, there were 3 other colleagues who were LGBT, potentially at Scottish Power, who didn't feel they could disclose their sexual orientation in the workplace. And although I can't imagine what it feels like to be physically attacked in the workplace, I just couldn't stand for the thought that that was happening to anybody by the fact that they're trans. It just really struck me quite deeply and profoundly. And I think that's something that I probably ask that everybody takes a little bit of time to think about when they think about the topic of diversity. We all frame things through our own lens, and it's very easy, therefore, to forget the things that we take for granted. So whenever somebody challenges you to think about diversity, really try and think about the privilege that you hold and really listen to other people's experiences. So it was at this point that myself and others decided that some action had to be taken. And so we went from that point on and started really challenging what it would mean to have a LGBT plus network at Scottish Power. By May of that year, we had actually went on and already set up what became Infuse. And very, very quickly, we were then preparing ourselves to go and be part of Glasgow's Pride March, and therefore after tried to challenge a number of things in our workplace. So we have introduced gender-neutral toilets. We have reviewed our HR policies to make sure that they are inclusive, particularly in the area of trans inclusion. We've held breakfast briefings on a range of diversity topics, such as what you're doing here today, and focusing and narrowing in certain areas, though, to try and help people understand very different perspectives. We have had bi-monthly newsletters aiming to try and educate as wide a population as we possibly can. We've had videos celebrating International Coming Out Day, which have included senior management support. We've had the opportunity really to broadcast widely and openly many of the aspects that LGBT plus individuals face in the workplace. And in amongst all of that, we've actually created a strong and healthy network of people who have managed to get together within Scottish Power and share their experiences. And I think that in itself has been really, really powerful. The power of the network we've created and the ability to have that sharing of ideas and information across our organisation. It's not just focused on engineering or great ideas or processes, but actually on people's experience and feelings. Now, the story's much more rich and there are a lot more highs and lows to how this all happened. And I'm individually more than happy to speak to anybody about setting up a network or how best to do that, or also learn from our mistakes. I'm not going to bore you with that today, but what I thought might be of use is to share a little bit about what we've learned and maybe try and give some takeaways that other people could benefit from. So what we've really found worked at Scottish Power was having employees lead. And by that, I mean, it really cannot be an HR-driven proposal. Doing something because it feels like the right thing to do on a corporate level just isn't that right answer as far as I'm concerned. It needs to come from a place of authenticity. So if you feel that there is a diversity issue in your organisation, ask those who are impacted by it, try and engage in an open, healthy dialogue where people can speak respectfully. And when you're bringing dialogue into play, one thing that we've found is that the biggest barrier to true diversity in workplace, in our workplace at least, is people's discomfort with discussing certain subjects. And most of the time, that is caused by the discomfort of the correct language to use. And I think what's really useful is for you to try and set a frame of reference for what is acceptable language. A good example that caused much debate at Scottish Power was the use of the word queer. For those who are slightly older, queer still holds a strong place as being a disparaging word, and one that is potentially or often used in a way to spread hate or to sort of suggest hate. But the word in recent years has been very much reclaimed by a younger LGBTQ community who are very much embracing it as a way of demonstrating the breadth of scope that LGBTQ plus can include. And I think even the debate around the use of that word helped to destigmatize the word, but also helped people to feel that they could openly have a conversation. So out with just LGBT, whether it be race, religion, really consider how you can destigmatize language and help people have the words to explain and discuss these subjects. I would also say give and lend your voice where you think it can be used. So if you're in a position of power or authority in your organisation, really give voice to people who perhaps need it and listen. Don't define success in numbers or awards. I think at the outset we were keen on running up the Stonewall Equality Index or really demonstrating our success through awards. I actually have to say the most rewarding things that we ever experienced, or I personally have experienced, have been people coming out to me at work whom I've known for years and who were living private lives that to some extent were causing them trouble or causing them distress. Seeing changes in the office, seeing people having open conversations, seeing changes in the culture every day, those are the things that you need to try and focus on. External applause, great, it's fantastic, but focus on what you can actually see in front of you and the change you're making to people's lives. And also, lastly, getting started is, in my opinion, the easy bit. That's the bit that everybody runs and wants to get an idea going, wants to get it running. Momentum's the hard bit. And it's something that we still struggle with. COVID's definitely had a massive impact on our networks because it's just made the opportunities for raising awareness more difficult. But what I would say as my piece of advice is try to encourage new blood and continue to think about how else you bring new ideas in and other people, rotate the people that are making the decisions, change up the structure, just keep it fresh to make sure that what is supposed to be something that's diverse doesn't become very singularly minded. I'm very, very mindful that time is tight today, so I'm not going to try and speak for too much longer. I just want to say diversity is something I'm really, really passionate about, and I became increasingly passionate about, particularly since being involved in setting up Infuse. I truly believe that for engineering, the problems that the engineering community need to solve are the problems of tomorrow. And in my opinion, tomorrow's world can only have its problems solved by having the most diverse and most, the most challenging minds at work. And you're only going to achieve that by having a diverse thought pattern. And that's going to come from encouraging diversity into your organisations. If you aren't doing something about it already, and I guess you are given by virtue of the fact you're here today, but if you aren't, I actively encourage you and I'm more than happy to help. Anybody on this call, if you want to reach out, I'll make sure my details are made available to Sarah or they're probably available via Teams at the side. Please just reach out and give me a shout.
Hi, good morning everyone, and thank you very much for inviting me to attend this morning. Blair, that was fantastic, and I think we've got a bit of work to do within our environment, so I will definitely be in touch. Scotland's bravest manufacturing company's new facility in Bishopton, it was set up after some research that took place with the Scottish Government saying veterans with disabilities were 50% more likely to be unemployed than those who suffered from a disability on its own. So we found that there was a certain amount of veterans who left the service and found it very difficult to seek employment. So we opened the factory in 2018, and one of the first things that we gave consideration to was the amount of disabilities that we may have. So the factory, we invested in the factory with our partners at Erskine Hospital and made it more inclusive. So we worked on the colours that, within the factory. So we worked with Dulux paints to make sure that if you had vision impairment issues, if you suffered from PTSD, anxiety, depression, that it was a good, bright environment, that we took into consideration door frames, that they should be black so that you could actually, sort of for your vision, that you could actually clearly see them. We extended door frames to make sure that if you had a large wheelchair, that you could actually get into the offices. Although it was originally a purpose-built factory, there were so many exclusions for people when they would be entering if you did have a disability that we had to make changes. So we invested considerably in it, and we tried to do that really sustainably as well. And yeah, we went from a disused, very lonely factory in 2018 in January, and we opened for business in the June of that year. What we tried to do was look at how it would be easy for veterans to come along for an interview, and we worked with different stakeholder groups to find out what could be the barriers for employment. One of them was that if you're a veteran and you join the service, you don't go for an interview as part of your employment process. You actually, you apply for a post and you're given that post if they deem that you're the right person to take up that position. So it means that when veterans go for interviews, even if you're an officer, you're disadvantaged because you've not gone through your career with, turning up and being questioned about your capabilities, what you're good at, so it can be very, very restrictive. So we made it that it was very much open days. You could come along for a visit, meet the team and then go for an interview. We even found then at that stage that veterans wouldn't see their veterans. So it was very limited and could be very difficult and challenging. One of the things that we thought we would do was, bring them along and hear from them from the first instance, and like the LGBT community, it's plus Q, they were restricted and disadvantaged. They found that in their workplace that if they did get a job that they were called Sergeant Major, people stood to attention. It might feel funny the first time someone says it, but if you go through your career and that's what you're hearing, it's very, very difficult and challenging. So we tried to make our facilities different, and that it's very mixed. The majority are veterans, but there's people like me who, managing director within the organisation, who's not military. We try to change the way that we discuss things. We are very open about our, what your disadvantage is, and we try to put a support network in place. I can tell you a little bit more about our team. We've got a group of veterans and families of veterans who have served the country, whether it be in Afghanistan, whether it be in Bosnia, Northern Ireland or Canada. Many of whom have left the service because of their disability and faced, disadvantage because of that. Many have gone on to study and even found it difficult from leaving college or university, and still found it difficult to find gainful employment. The difference and the impact that our team make to us is incredible. Most of the team have come along on 18 months fixed term contracts, and they build their confidence, they work with us, gain new skills, and it doesn't matter if you're a triple amputee, a double amputee, or you've got PTSD, we find a way for you to work within our organisation. What we also offer is very flexible working, so it's not the standard 35, 37-hour weeks. It can be as little as 12 hours, and we work with the team to find what's best for them so that they can have a successful, sustainable employment. But one thing that I will say is we benefit greatly. We have the most amazing team, and the reason we've gone from zero to over £1 million in 3 years is because of the quality of the work and the dedication that our team actually have.
Yep, great. Thank you very much indeed, and thanks very much to the other speakers. That was really interesting. Great work that goes on across Scotland, and it's lovely just to get a bit of an insight into it. So I've just got a few slides here just to share with you. Hopefully you can see that now. I'll just make this a bit bigger. So a bit of background about me I thought would be useful just to help everybody can understand a bit more. Wait a minute to find the slides, there we go. A bit more about me and background and like where I've come from and where I've gone to and what I've done now. So just a bit of chat in here about where I came from. So pretty reserved child, very shy, didn't speak up very much, grew up in a small village, about 200, 300 houses, typical kind of Scottish background, joined our father, mum stayed at home, very humble beginnings, local school, went through kind of local school, married relatively young, wasn't a great student, managed to scrape into university by the skin of my teeth, managed to scrape my degree, 3rd class honours. I went to Glasgow University and I did chemistry at university. So from there, had no clue what I wanted to do, didn't really know even why I went to university, had no real interest, or I didn't know anybody in business. And I even had to kind of phone the minister and find out what a faculty meant. No idea, because our family did not kind of move in those realms of university or kind of degree educated people. So pretty humble beginning. Joined Diageo, so I had 2 job offers when I left. One was with Diageo, kind of drinks company, make gin, spirit, vodka, Guinness, they own loads of brands, to go in as a graduate chemist into the labs, or I was going to the Navy. So I sometimes think about what my life would have been like if I'd joined the Navy. But anyway, went in there and I remember sitting in meetings, didn't open my mouth, so insular, only women mostly in meetings. There was no other, I think there was one other female graduate and she was out, she was an engineer, she was out in site a lot rather than in the lab. So kind of a different species coming into the organisation at that time. Stayed with Diageo actually all through my career, so I never did anything else, was there for 28 years. You can see in the photos, I moved up through the ranks, I got to travel quite a bit into our factories in India. I was in Kilmarnock at the Johnny Walker site, and then started to kind of earn a bit of money and kind of pay back to parents, bring son up, started going kind of nicer places. And you can see the 2 pictures at the bottom, hugely privileged, got invited to some spectacular places and dinners. Michelle Obama there and the guy out of Outlander as well. So fabulous career, absolutely loved it. At the last probably 6 years of my career, kind of early 40s, there was always this bit in it. I was a single mum for nearly 10 years and then remarried. But there was always this bit in me about, well, how do I give back now? Because I've had the help and the support from people through my career when things were really bad, and I couldn't think about even going to the office, lost a child, all of this like stuff that everybody, life throws at everybody. So I'm not saying in any way it's special in any way, but everybody has these ups and downs, and there was always people there to give me a bit of a dig out when I needed it. So starting to think about how did I put things back, and the HR director at that time, she said to me, when I got promoted into the last job I was doing, she said to me, right, you're now the most senior woman in the supply chain. what are you going to do about diversity and inclusion? And I was like, well, I don't know if really that sits with me. But anyway, it really struck a chord that all coming up through my career, I didn't really have role models. I didn't have anybody at the top of the organisation pulling women up. I mean, all the policies and everything were in place, fantastic organisation to work for. And I think the biggest thing that started thinking about is, if I had my time again, what have I learned and what would I do differently, or what skills would I want to have to help me not waste as much energy, waste as much time, be as kind of anxious and uptight and stressed about things, even though on the outside you're looking like, you know, you're a gracious swan. How could I have stopped that energy burn inside me? And that's when I started doing some of the charity work, Big Hearts, Housing Association, and also when the last kind of 4 years in Diageo, there was this bit when we looked at the numbers of females to males all across the world. There's like 36,000 employees. And when we looked at all the numbers of the women to men ratio in all jobs, not just in the science side, what we were finding was, if we looked at junior managers, it was about 50-50. Brilliant graduates were about 50-50. But then when you looked at those people that were managing other people, the number of females that were doing that fell away to about 25%. So there was something happening where either females were choosing not to move into roles where they were managing other people, or there was some blockage within the system that stopped that happening. So that was one area. And then the second area was when we had senior managers, but they just couldn't seem to break through into the executive positions in the organisation. So what we did was we put together, when similar to what Blair was saying, it was a personal kind of crusade. It wasn't anything that we pulled the big corporate into. I worked with a couple of coaches external to the business, and we put together, it was called Women in Leadership and Women in Diageo in the Supply Chain. So what it was a set of workbooks that we went through once a month. Similar to this, the technology went out to anybody who wanted to join, female, and it was all about helping individuals across the world to understand themselves, understand what they want out of life in the holistic life, not just career. It was all about home and how they interact with others, and then giving them some tools and techniques to allow them to really be at their best. Because especially when you're someone who is in, I mean, wrong words here perhaps, but in the minority, like I was, like the only female usually, I can sense that with other speakers as well in different minority groups. I just felt that being at your best, being comfortable in your own skin, knowing what you want out your career and your life, you are a lot more articulate and being able to say what you're thinking and what you're feeling, because you're kind of grounded in that confidence. So this these workbooks were set up to allow women around the world to learn these techniques. Nothing, no brain surgery in there. It was all relatively things that some people would have dipped in and out of, but it was written in such a way that it was a practical guide. Like many of you that are on the call, you are science backgrounds and engineering backgrounds. Your brains will work quite logically, you know, from a maths point of view, as mine did. So how do you do a step-by-step on some of these more esoteric subjects like relationships, like self-image? How could we, not formulaic, but how could we lay it out in a logical way that could tell a story that the more logical brains, a lot of the supply chain, could harness and actually put it into practice? So that program ran for 5 years, and there was about 2,000 women from Singapore to Ghana to Mexico to North America, all over the world, these people dialed in, and some of the feedback would kind of blow your head. It was all about happiness, it was about confidence, it was about knowing how to have the conversation with your line manager about what you want out your career. And one of the quotes that we put in this book, and when I'm feeling like not at my best, I kind of go back to this, and some of you may know it. And it took me a while actually to get this quote in my head about what it meant. So let me read it, and then I've just got another couple of slides. So our deepest fear is not that we're inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It's our light, not our darkness, that frightens us. We ask, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, and fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? So, I mean, the first bit's all about, we are so blessed, every one of us on this call, every one of us that have, got roles, got homes, everything that we've got. And the way that I interpret that is, how dare I not use all that I've been given to actually get out there and do my thing. And next bit, we are a child of the universe. Your playing small doesn't serve the world. There's nothing enlightened about shrinking so that others feel insecure around you. We're all meant to shine as children do. So again, it's all about, we've all been given the same stuff. We've all been born, we've all been given personalities and all the things that we've been blessed with. So us being introverted and going in ourselves and shrinking is not helping others round about us to shine too. It's not in some of us, it's in everyone. And as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. As we liberate from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others. And you can hear that from some of the conversations that have been had this morning. The more that we can stand up and say, here's who I am, and let other people in, that actually gives other people permission to do the same because they want to share. How many times have you actually opened up and shared something about yourself and somebody else has had the very same experience or can tell you a bit more about themselves? So when I'm feeling that I'm a bit put upon, feeling a bit sorry for myself, feeling a bit fed up with life in general, I try to go back to this. Now, sometimes it doesn't hit the mark because I'm just too deep into my own issues that I've got, but a lot of times this one actually just pulls me back up again. So what my kind of summary of things are is, and I've put this, all of the materials that I spoke about, I've developed it into a book now, and it's written for men and women. It's not just solely for women now. Used a lot of the tools and techniques that I taught and refined those with some of the feedback that we've got. So my whole kind of ethos round about it is how we perform at our best, and that in performance I mean, you know, our social life, our careers, our family life, our happiness. And we live our best life when we are feeling that we're comfortable in our own skin, we feel fit and strong, we've got great social lives, we're feeling happy and grateful for every day, we're confident that we can say what we're thinking without fear of anything going to happen to us. We know what we're working towards, we know what the big picture is, we're trusted and we are trusting of others. And we bring out the best in others, and we feel that we're high performing in all we're doing. And I know for me, I can think of times in my life when I'm absolutely on my game, and I know that people feel grateful for what I'm doing, whether it's at home, at work, or whatever. And that's the space that, yeah, you're not going to feel like that every day, but how can, if I feel like that 2 days a year just now, next year, how am I going to feel like 3 days like that, 4 days? And that's all about your self-development. So within what we've put together, these are the big things that if I had my time again, these are the things that I would have loved to know at 21, when both at home and at work, like, would first marriage have broken down if I'd known a lot of this stuff? Perhaps, perhaps not. Would I have stopped all the angst and the energy that I've burned inside? Totally. Would I have slept better? Probably. So these are the things that I think I'd love to know again. So did I really know myself and what I brought, like what made me me, and what were the experiences that made me me? Could I vision the future, or was it just like I'm gripping on, single mum, trying to hold down this career, and all I did was sleep and work and look after the lad? So how could I have kind of really, what do I want out of life? What do I want from my career? What does self-confidence really mean? Because I think a lot of this can be learned. You're not, some people are born maybe socially confident, but that's not self-confidence. Like the self-confidence I'm meaning is that how do you learn that no matter what life throws at you, you'll deal with it? So I couldn't have told you what the difference in all that is. What is a working relationship? That was the biggest breakthrough for me. I had tried to be liked and be really good for everybody, doing everything. So really understand what is a working relationship. Self-image. Some of us maybe think it's a bit conceited, but if you're working towards something, does your self-image give off what you're trying to achieve? How do you influence? How do you handle situations? I know for me, the fight or flight was strong. I'd either want to burst out crying or run away, or actually start getting the boxing gloves off. But how can you actually handle situations where you feel that you've got what you want and so does the other person? And then I think the other thing is just continue to learn, to grow and learn. So last one, and this is not a plug by any way, but just to say that I have put all this material together. I don't make any money from it, so it's not the hard sell. All the profits go to the Children's Hospice for Scotland, and also a charity in Edinburgh, which is linked with the Hearts Football Club, which operates in Gorgie, which has got a lot of issues and opportunities for the community there. So all the money goes to the charities. And I've used the book when I've been coaching individuals, coaching teams, and I mean, I've given you kind of an overview of what's in it. But just my advice as a kind of 50-something, been through that career, set up myself now during COVID, is that there is a big, exciting, fabulous world out there. And when we are at our best, we can achieve anything. So it's all about authoring what you want from your life, and there's no rights or wrongs. It doesn't have to be career orientated. It can be life in general. But once we've kind of understood ourselves and what we want from life, you can achieve anything. So I would just really encourage, as the other speakers have done as well, if you individually have issues or challenges around about diversity and inclusion, if your organisation does, or you just feel that there's so much injustice or areas where they aren't fair, then I would really encourage you to dig deep and actually get out there and change the world. Because if a lot of you are younger on the call, I don't really know what the age demographic is, but you guys are going to be the leaders of the future. And we really, really, really need you guys performing on top of your game. And I think, again, it was something that Blair said there, is with climate, with all the socioeconomic things that are going on, it will be the designers and the engineers of this world that will design the new future for us. So thank you so much for listening. Hopefully there was a little nugget in there for some of you that you could resonate with, and I really wish you good luck with your careers. So back to you, Sarah.